Throughout this pandemic, we've been able to see children from a very different lens. Apps like TikTok became very popular over the past 2 years, and we've seen children laugh, cry, fall, dance, sing, and be themselves. But have we been doing enough for their mental health? In an article done by ABC News Australia, Stephanie Dalzell reported that more than 50% of kids with mental health issues aren't getting any help. The article explains the issues with the current mental health resources in Australia, the experiences people, doctors, and professionals have had, and the plans that the Australian government have to improve mental well-being. The National Mental Health Commission of Australia also stated that there is no real system of affordable care for children and that it's really hard for children or families to access any help. With lengthy wait lists, high out-of-pocket costs, and a shortage of specialists being the issues issues. Now, you might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with Canada? What does this have to do with this project? Well, mental health affects us all differently, from kids to the elderly. Also, in Canada, we have our own mental health commission, which has a lot of resources for Canadians that are looking for help when it comes to mental health, and also other Canadians that are looking to destigmatize mental health and mental illness. So when we look at this article and we look at kids' mental health and kids' mental illness, we can and should be able to apply all these sort of aspects of kids' mental health, kids' mental illness, and the resources they have to the social models of health. First, applying kids' mental health, mental illness, the entirety of everything to the social construction of health and illness and how mental illness is viewed as a whole. In the 1700s and the 1800s, when people were mentally ill and mentally unwell, they were looked down upon. They were ostracized, they were isolated, they were even killed because they were mentally ill. Although we have moved away from killing people for being mentally ill, there is still a lot of stigma that surrounds mental health and mental illness. It's still a very difficult topic to talk about with adults, but even more so with children and kids, because a lot of things are seen as just a phase. Moving away from the social construction of health and illness and more towards the social organization of health and illness, the lack of access many children and parents and families have for proper psychiatry is what stands in the way of many children getting the help that they need for mental health and mental illness. If children are able to have proper access to psychiatrists, then they are able to actually get the proper help that they need. Unfortunately, a lot of these children are being diagnosed by pediatricians. And although pediatricians can help with children's development and children's growth, they can't necessarily help with children's mental health and mental illness, especially if it is on the more severe side. So if children are able to have that access to psychiatry rather than pediatricians, then they are able to properly better their mental health. In the article, it states that access is particularly difficult for kids outside of the city. So if a child lives on the countryside, by the beach, in a town somewhere, they are going to have a more difficult time getting the help that they need for their mental health and the resources that they need compared to a kid within the city. This correlates with the social production and distribution of health and illness and how it correlates with the socioeconomic status one has. Before we finish, I want you to think about these certain questions. First question is, what can the Australian government do to better children's mental health? The second question is, do you feel as though we have the same issues with children's mental health, children's mental illness, and mental health in Canada? Yes or no? Why? And finally, what is one thing that has affected your mental health and what do you do to help cope?